Welcome to the Pulse with Peter B. I'm your host, Peter Biancamano. Let's get you to the pulse on everything you need to know. And today's show is brought to you by The Dream Project. You can find out more information about our friends at The Dream Project at the link at the bottom of your screen. And do you smell that, Josh?
What
It's
is it?
election season
Yes.
in
Yes.
Hudson County.
Very, very silly time of the year.
Very, very silly time of the year. We do have primaries coming up, and we are joined by our political analyst, Josh Sotomayor Einstein. And how are you today?
Good. It's good to be here in this silly season, and it's good to have you as the host of this segment.
Wow, I am humbled by it. We took a week off, and something happened to him. I don't know what. We'll get to the bottom of it. But let's see.
I'm just buttering him up because I'm going to talk a lot.
There you go. Well, as I mentioned in this beginning of the segment, there is primary elections coming up on Tuesday, June the 8th. And of course, you're here to talk about the Republican primary. So just to remind the audience, what are they voting for on Tuesday?
So Tuesday, June 8th, is the gubernatorial primary. That's the top of the ticket, as well as state assembly and state senate. And for those who are unaware, because it's esoteric and no one knows what it is, and because they don't actually try to spread information in the corridors of power to the normal people, there's the state senate and the state assembly. And the state assembly is like our version of the House of Representatives. Both sit, the state senators and the state assembly people sit in Trenton and are supposed to be one of the checks and balances on the governor. Obviously, at this time, they don't serve that purpose of being a check and a balance. They just go along with our current governor. But for my fellow Republicans out there, we have a lot of good choices for the governorship. I won't say my personal choice. I'll leave that up to you. But in addition to that, there's also an election for a county committee of the GOP.
That's correct. Yeah. And I think it's only fair that we do say we're not going to get into who all the assembly people are, but there are three state senators representing the state of Hudson County, rather. And that's Senator Brian P. Stack, Senator Nicholas Sacco, and Senator Cunningham, who's facing a DWI charge that we'll get to at a whole nother time. But very, very important, the county committee races that are happening in each of the cities. Explain how many seats there are and so on and so forth.
Well, it's funny that you accidentally slipped up and said in the state of Hudson County because our politics.
My apologies for that.
Our politics. No, I'm not impugning you, but our politics are just so weird here that it sometimes feel like we are our own state. And we are ruled not out of Trenton, but by our political overlords, some of which this guy to my left just named, which is appropriate because they are in the Democrats and they are on the left. But in the Republican Party, we have the county committee elections. And
Correct.
We've talked about it before, Peter.
Absolutely.
But just in case people don't recall, the county committee is made up of Republicans that are elected by their fellow Republicans in their individual voting district. So, for example, my voting district is 6-7, Ward 6 of Hoboken, 7th District. It's about 5 blocks, and all the Republicans in that area can vote for me, because I am on the ballot, to represent them to the Hudson County Republican Organization.
Right. Now, just to take a step back, every city has an X amount of county committee people, correct?
Yes.
And I believe it's up to 80 in Hoboken that are on the committee, and it's probably in the hundreds in Jersey City, and so, depending
big time.
on the size of the municipality, correct? So yes, you're running in your district, and Josh is the only one running for Republican committee to have competition this year.
Yes.
Were you surprised?
I wasn't surprised because I'm actually running for two things.
Go ahead.
One is for the county committee position and also for chairman of the Hudson County Republican Organization. And the reason that I'm running is because we need to have an actual Republican Party, not Democratic Party Part 2, or a county chair of the Republicans that is actually a Democratic operative. And in my district, for a county committee, he recruited somebody who just a couple of weeks ago or a month or two ago was a registered Democrat for his entire life, had been on the Municipal Democrat Committee of Hoboken on the executive board, and who asked permission of 2 Democratic machine politicians in Hudson County, asked for their blessing, rather. I don't think they actually cared about him. They just yesed him to death because he donates. Asked permission before making the switch. And his plan is to turn the the Hoboken Municipal Republican Committee into a slush fund for the Democrats that he and the current county chair, Jose Arango, both serve. So I've actually brought...
Well, one second, because I think that it's important that we explain this to the audience. So Jose Arango is the current Hudson County Republican chair that Josh is looking to dethrone at the county committee meeting, which is going to be held, I believe, June 15th?
Yes, by state statute, it has to be the Tuesday following the primary.
And Jose Arango knows that Josh is gunning for him, to put it in direct terms. So he recruited Joseph Bronco to run against Josh in his local county committee race. And before you get onto your literature, Josh couldn't be any more right. Joe Bronco is a Democrat. What I have said to you plenty of times before, that I lean to the left and I consider myself a fellow Democrat. I am not running to the other side to do a political favor. Josh is a true Republican in the most, natural sense of the word. And for Jose Arango to do this, he's playing politics, putting a Democrat. But Josh, he has played around with Democrats, as you mentioned, for all his career, correct?
Absolutely. And that's why I sent a number of palm cards that I have in my hand. We'll show them on the screen. Outlining the differences between myself, as I've been a member of the New Jersey Republican State Committee on the state level involved in the party, and his history of working for the Democrats, fundraising, Jose Arango, fundraising for the Democrats in his position as county Republican chairman, actually fundraising for Democrats, for left-wing politicians, endorsing Democrat candidates, working against the interests of the Republican Party, as well as a history of driving under the influence and the fact that he doesn't actually live in Hudson County.
And that's illegal.
Yes.
You have to live in the county to be the county chair.
Yes.
Okay.
But, it's Hudson County politics. It's like we're not just our own state, but our own world sometimes, where the powers that be get away with pretty much anything that's not murder, and sometimes even that. But my message to you out there, my fellow Republicans that are watching this show, many of the county committee seats are actually empty because there's no actual outreach from Arango, the useless county chair of the Republicans, to fellow Republicans, because he doesn't want people to be involved. So if on June 8th you go to the voting booth and you see, and you're voting in the Republican primary, and you see on the bottom where it says county committee person for the GOP, and it's empty, hit the personal choice button all the way on the right and type in your own name. There's a greater than 50% chance, if it's empty, that you will then be elected to Hudson County Republican Committee, and then you'll then be notified of the location and the time, or legally you're supposed to be notified of the time and location of the meeting about a week later after June 8th. That's June 15th. And then you can come, you can help me, you can help other Republicans take back the Republican Party, because we need a Republican Party that's Republican again in Hudson County.
And we will put those directions at the bottom of your screen just to piss off our editor, Greg. But anyway.
He was a wonderful man, and I appreciate his patience.
Anyway, but Josh, we do have a few seconds here. What do you want to tell voters in your district, Ward 6, District 7, I believe you said, that are going to go to the polls, that have the option between you, a lifelong Republican that I don't agree with anything.
Well, I'm not a lifelong Republican.
I'm sorry, but a staunch Republican now,
so.
and a natural Republican, not a Republican in name only, a rhino, as they say, correct? Against Joseph Bronco, who is a rhino in this case.
Well, listen, I'm all about the big tent. I am myself fairly conservative and liberty-minded. I don't mind if other Republicans are more towards the center than I, but definitely we need to have people that weren't just Democrats 2 seconds ago and aren't trying to pimp out Republican Party organizations and committees in order to help their Democratic masters. Hudson County has enough machine Democrats. It doesn't need another machine Democrat party. It needs a Republican Party to give people a different point of view, a different option. And I'd like your support both in 6-7 and if you want to run for county committee, write yourself in there. Together, we can make the Hudson County Republican Party actually Republican again.
There you go. There is the slogan. I like that. Josh Sotomayor Einstein, and again, I've mentioned this on the show several times. There is nobody that I know in probably North Jersey that has done more for the Republican Party than this gentleman to my right. He drives me crazy. He wants to debate me left and right about my core values. But at the end of the day...
Just right. I just want to debate you from the right.
Exactly. At the end of the day, there is nobody that works harder for Republicans that I say in North Jersey. And it's, I'm going to say this, a damn shame that you have a Republican chairman who's only looking out for his own interests by recruiting Democrats to run against a person who's so Republican that most liberals would say it's sickening. But Josh is not sickening. Anyway, Josh Sotomayor Einstein, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Folks, when we come back, we're going to have the other side of the aisle. Rachel Hodes, chairwoman of the Hoboken Democratic Committee, joins us. We will be right back. Peter Biancamano, your hostess with the mostest of the Pulse with Peter B. Folks, don't forget to go on our Facebook and our Instagram pages by searching the Pulse with Peter B. and like and follow us on each of those platforms. We're constantly updating those pages with previews of each week's segments and cool stories. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our email address at thepulsewithpeterb@gmail.com. Welcome back to The Pulse. And now that we got Josh out of here, thank the Lord, I mean, we have some clarity in our lives because joining us for the third time or fourth time, I don't even know, I think I mentioned here, I really don't know how to count, is Rachel Hodes, who is the chairwoman of the Hoboken Democratic Committee. Rachel, great to see you again.
So nice to see you. Last time we had beautiful weather. You told me you were going to bring it again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry
not so
about
great
that.
today.
This is what happens when we put Josh as our first segment. Cloudy, rainy, and miserable. Anyway, so in the last segment, we were a little raunchy, but, that's the way kind of Josh likes to do it. But now we have more civility in our lives because we're going to talk about the Democratic primary also taking place on Tuesday, June the 8th.
Yep.
And why don't we start at the top, the governor's race? And that's easy because Governor Murphy is running for re-election
Unopposed.
against nobody in the primary. Moving on. No, I'm kidding. Why do you think that is, Rachel?
I mean, I think Governor Murphy has shown incredible leadership over the past 4 years. I think especially through the COVID pandemic, he's really had the interest of New Jersey residents at heart. And I think many of us in the Democratic Party just want to see that leadership continue.
Absolutely. Phenomenal. Now, we didn't really talk about it in the last segment, but we have talked about it before. But the Republican race for governor is kind of vicious right now.
Yeah.
Between, I would say, the top two candidates, that's Jack Ciattarelli and Hirsch Singh.
Yes.
What are the main differences between the two Republican leading candidates and Governor Murphy going into the November race where one of them is going to face off against the governor?
I don't think we have enough time to talk about all of them, but what I would just say is, for me, I think Governor Murphy represents forward motion and continuing the progress that we've made here in New Jersey, again, in the past 4 years. And both of the Republican candidates, to me, signal going backwards. I think we've seen those candidates express support for abortion bans after 20 weeks. It's Pride Month this month, and both of the candidates have shown that they do not have the interests of our LGBTQ plus residents at heart. I've seen stuff about loosening gun control laws and really just not taking the considerations of the real needs of our New Jersey residents at hand.
Interesting. And I have to tell you, when I look at polls across the board, I mean, the favorability of Governor Murphy throughout the pandemic are 60s, I believe.
Yeah.
I mean, 60-40, favorable to unfavorable. So
Absolutely.
It says something.
It does. And you look at all of the candidates' websites, which I did in anticipation of our conversation.
Look
and
at that. Research. I like that.
Governor Murphy has a slew of plans and experience and things that he has done for small businesses, for the environment, for women, for, again, LGBTQ plus individuals. And you look at the websites of both of the other leading candidates, and they're either one line on policy things, or they're not an expansive platform about actual plans that are going to move us forward.
Interesting. Well, let's move down to a little bit of a local level. They say all politics is local, Rachel. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would.
100% as the local Democratic chairwoman here. We do have also committee races coming up
Yes.
on Tuesday, June 8th, as I mentioned. Polls open 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. still, correct?
Yep, that's
and it's not an all vote by mail election. We didn't mention that
Correct.
the last time. So you can go to your voting place. Your sample ballots should already be in your mailboxes.
Yes.
So the committee races, when you were on just a few months ago, maybe about a couple months ago, you mentioned it was right around the deadline of when the committee
Yes.
seats were due. There are 80 committee seats for both the Republicans and the Democrats
Yes.
in the city of Hoboken, and you weren't sure if the Democrats filled up to those 80 seats. Did you?
So no, all 80 seats do not have people running in them, but we have 68 districts that people are running in.
Wow, 68 people running in districts, correct?
No, 68 districts. There are
Oh.
70 people running. So in 2 of the districts, you
see.
have 2 individuals running for the same position.
Gotcha.
I'm sorry, not districts, positions.
Positions,
There are 40
that's why I was
districts,
confused.
excuse
Yes.
me, sorry. 40 districts, 70 individuals running for 68 positions.
And by the way, folks, that is a phenomenal number. That's like 92%. Is my math correct there?
I don't have my calculator
But I think
on
it's
me,
right.
but we'll go with it.
We'll go with it.
I'll
Maybe
take the
92,
92.
93%. I mean, the Republicans, on the other hand, I think that really only have 14 or 16 people running in 80 seats.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show you the leadership of Rachel
thank
getting
you.
93% of the, God, I really hope that number's correct, of the seats running. Now, let's talk about those 2 districts that there's opposition, because we just had Josh here, and of course, he's the only Republican running in his district that has competition, let's say, somebody running against him. But it's a little different on the Democratic side. I mean, we're on the Republican side, it's nasty and it's for political motivation and things like that. On the 2 people running opposed on the Democratic side against people that are not running on the Hudson County Democratic Organization line, are doing it for the right reasons, but obviously, still running against one of your candidates.
Absolutely. And, I think it really comes down to, so the Democratic Committee has a myriad of things, as you know, as a longtime committee person, a myriad of things that they can take advantage of, they can exercise leadership around. Our committee has really focused in the past term on getting Democrats elected at the federal level, in state governments, and that's where really the energy has been for folks, writing postcards, phone banking, getting out the vote, hopefully canvassing when we can again, and also helping to advocate around issues that matter to local residents here. And I think the other 2 individuals who are running on their own line are really much more focused on reforming the county committee. And so for me, we're all Democrats. There's so much that unites us.
Correct.
We agree more times than we don't. And I think it's really what it comes down to is which candidate is really representing the issues that matter to you most as a voter and what you want the committee to prioritize and focus on in the next term.
Exactly. And whatever happens in those 2 district races, you're going to welcome them with open arms.
Absolutely.
To the reorganization meeting, which takes place a
Absolutely.
week later. So.
Yes. I'm just happy that more people are running for office. I think it's great. We want to get people involved and excited and showing leadership. So
Now, I think it's
absolutely.
also important that for these open districts, whichever they are, which, if my math is correct, there's 4, maybe 5 open districts, maybe 6.
I think right now we have the districts, I'm not sure, but we have 12 positions
12
open.
positions open. I think it's
Yeah.
important that people know, and you could reach out to Rachel, and I'm going to ask you for your contact
Sure.
information, that they could write themselves in.
Yeah.
On election day, correct?
Yeah.
And knowing them or a significant other or a neighbor or a friend,
Yeah.
they'll win their district seat if it's an open district. So how could people get in touch with you that might be in an open district and saying, look, I want to be part of the Hoboken Democratic Committee?
Absolutely. I would love for anybody and everybody to reach out. So please do. You can find Hoboken Democrats on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Our email address is out there. But you can also reach out to me directly, which is the spelling of my name at Gmail. So that's RACHELHODES @gmail.com. Please
Love the
reach
spelling.
out.
You know who else loves the spelling? Our editor, Greg. Anyway, as he's praised. Anything else you want to mention, about why it's so important? Look, the governor's race is unopposed.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the other state senator and assembly races are,
Yeah.
pretty much unopposed as well. Why is it so important to come out and vote on Tuesday?
I think it's an expression of using your voice. I know that there are most folks are running unopposed, but the ability to vote is a privilege that not everybody in the world is given as much access as we have here in America. And in New Jersey, with expanding voter rights, again, thanks to Governor Murphy, we have the ability to vote, and it really is a privilege that we get to do that. So I encourage everybody, even though those races are unopposed, to get out there and show your support.
Yeah, well, Rachel Hodes, chairwoman of the Hoboken Democratic Committee, so happy to have you back here.
Thank you. This is great. Thank you for having me.
And we want you here more because now the governor's race is going to heat up where Governor Murphy is going to have some competition.
Yeah, I'm happy to chat about it.
I love it. Oh, yeah. Maybe we'll see what happens. Debate. Yeah, I love it. Rachel, thank you again.
Of course.
Absolutely. Folks, we will be right back. Peter Biancamano back with you. Don't forget to watch us on cable access every Sunday and Monday at 9 a.m. Optimum Channel 18, Files Channel 46, and Comcast Channel 190. Also on Sunday mornings at 9:30 a.m., you can watch our show on our YouTube channel, and you can also binge watch all of our old shows. Who doesn't want to keep watching The Pulse with Peter B? We'll see you there. Welcome back to The Pulse with Peter B. I'm your host, Peter Biancamano. We want to thank Rachel Hodes for coming in the last segment, chairwoman of the Hoboken Democratic Committee. She's becoming a regular on this show. It's like her third or fourth time. I don't know how to count. But anyway, but joining us now is an even more special guest.
Well, I was going to say irregular because it's been a while.
I was going to say, I knew he was going to yell at me. He's calling me out. And even though I'm going to give him a wonderful adjective right now, and that is our sports majesty, Mr. Matt Waymeyer, our sports insider. How's it going, Matt?
It's going good, but like
You've been missing. You've been missing.
I've been, well, it's a two-way street.
Okay, fair enough.
All right.
Fair enough.
The important thing is I'm back.
In studio.
I'm happy to be back in studio.
I know.
And I'm
I know.
pumped.
And you're pumped. Why are you pumped, Matt?
Playoffs.
Playoff time.
As Jim Morris said.
Playoff time.
Playoffs?
Playoffs? We're going to put that clip right at the bottom
Never
of your
gets
screen
old.
just to drive crazy.
Never gets old.
But anyway, all right, speaking of playoffs, there are only two local teams in the both NBA and NHL playoffs currently. Why don't we start with the association?
Okay.
You like that, right?
I like that.
The association.
Very
Of course,
bougie of you.
very bougie.
Yes,
Well, you know, Matt, you
yes.
haven't been here in a while. We got a little bougie here on the Pulse.
You've upgraded, right?
Exactly. Anyway, and that is the basketball playoffs. The Brooklyn Nets, who was probably one of the best teams in the East this year, I would say.
Without question.
Without question is right. Taking on the Milwaukee Bucks,
Yeah.
who were only, I think, 2 games behind them in the standings. How tough of a test is this going to be for this
It's going to be a tough test for both teams, and I sit here as a Celtics fan in shambles because they just decimated my poor Celtics, my poor injured, banged up Celtics, who then fired their coach and the GM retired, and well, they didn't fire the coach; he's now the new GM. It's all weird. We're not talking about them, even though I just did.
I was going to say,
Let's move
that was like
on
30 seconds
from
of
that. But the Nets took care of the Celtics in 5 games, as most people thought they would. Look, they're going to go as far as the big 3 takes them. Durant, Harden, Kyrie. I think what's been surprising about the Nets is that when they made the Harden trade, they gave up so much depth. They gave up guys like Jarrett Allen. They gave up guys like Karis LeVert. But they've had other guys, Claxton, Joe Harris, really step in and fill those roles. DeAndre Jordan, can't forget about him, didn't get a lot of minutes in the Celtics series. But I think they have enough to really carry this team very deep, however deep may be, whether it's, Eastern Conference Finals, NBA Finals. I think that, I know that the Sixers are the number 1 seed, but Joel Embiid, he's got health issues again. And he went down with a bad knee in Game 5 of their series against the Wizards. They won, so they advanced, but still, that's something to look out for. But the Nets and the Bucks, that's going to be great. I mean, you can't. It seems like everybody kind of slept on the Bucks this year because of Giannis fatigue, the 2-time reigning MVP, and people kind of forgot about them because the Nets had all the hoopla. They made all the big splashes with getting, of course, Irving and Durant, then adding James Harden. And, of course, that's going to generate headlines. But the Bucks are a team you cannot sleep on. They added Drew Holiday. They got Chris Middleton. Giannis is still Giannis. It's going to be a hell of a series. I think it's going 7.
You think it's going 7?
Yeah.
Back against the Riverfront here. Already.
Oh.
I want to know who you. Wait. Before we even get to that, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I get a reprieve.
Yeah, exactly. A few seconds here. And we said that you weren't going to talk about the Boston Celtics anymore, but I want you to talk about the Boston Celtics. I mean, I do think this was a low move by Kyrie Irving when he stepped on the leprechaun in center court.
You don't do that to Lucky.
You don't
do that to
You
Lucky.
don't do that to Lucky the leprechaun.
No.
But, Matt, I think this is a bigger issue because there has been fans treating players like almost like animals, at these games. And it's no wonder why the players are lashing back out at the fans, correct? Or in this case, the logo in the center
In
court
fairness,
in Boston.
the logo stomp happened before Kyrie was hit with the bottle. I see what you're getting at, but I just
Right.
want to point out sequence
Yeah,
of
no,
events here.
I understand.
So, but Kyrie, one thing I do agree with him in his post-game comments after the water bottle incident. He said, "We're treated like we're animals in a human zoo," as you alluded to, and he's right. And there have been incidents at MSG, in Philadelphia, now in Boston, which already has a bad reputation for being a racist city and not
Right.
treating black
Right.
athletes the way that they should be treated, the way any human should be treated.
Exactly.
So it's been a black eye on these playoffs and with fan behavior and interaction. It's been terrible to see. I hope it subsides because they took swift action with the idiot in Boston that threw the bottle at Kyrie, arrested, banned for life from TD Garden. Those are the actions, the protocols that have to be taken. And again, I hope this subsides for the remainder of the playoffs. It's been terrible to see.
I mean, speaking of being caged, most people were caged for the last year and a half
Yeah,
during the
but
pandemic.
that's no
and
excuse.
No excuse at
No
all.
excuse at all.
I completely agree with you.
Right.
All right, moving on. What do you got the Nets? Bucks series. That's
Boy,
what
oh
you know.
boy.
You know.
Well,
what
I
I mean.
already said 7.
All right.
I see the Nets moving on.
Nets moving on. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they're not. Look, they know that they're not going to win with lockdown defense. That's
Right.
not how they're
Right.
built. That's not their style. If Irving is Irving and KD is KD and Harden is Harden, then they're going to win. They're going to advance because those guys on any given night can put up 40 points. Harden can dish out 15 dimes. They can all do their thing. And they're going to be a team that outscores the opposition to move on. Again, it's not going to be through defense.
Okay.
The Bucks are still very good, but I think the Nets are a little bit better.
All right. Well, let's move on to the National Hockey League.
do it.
This is our favorite sport. I mean, we've never kept this a secret from the audience. And we're going to talk about a series that's knee deep right now,
Yeah.
and that is the New York Islanders against your Boston Bruins, of course, right? Interestingly enough, there was a time this season where Boston didn't even look like they were going to make the playoffs. And then they took care of Washington handily in the first round.
Yeah.
And, of course, the Islanders have Barry Trotz, who is the head coach and a genius and knows how to get the best out of his players. What do you like in this series?
Well, first of all, I think the two teams are largely mirror images of each other in terms of how they play. I think the Bruins are more talented. They've got they got more top end frontline talent, the perfection line, Marchand, Bergeron, and Pasternak. The Isles can't match that in terms of raw talent. What they can do is, and I said this to my friends after the Bruins won Game 1 rather handily. I said, let's not get comfortable because Barry Trotz is the best in the business at
in the business.
between game adjustments.
Unbelievable.
And sure enough, they built a 3-1 lead in game
The Bill
2.
Belichick of the National Hockey League. Hasn't won the championships, but in terms of adjustments, I think.
He did win a couple.
He did win a couple, but not
he
as
won a
many as
couple with the
Belichick, I'm
Capitals.
saying. Right.
Not as
Yeah.
many- who's won as many as him?
Yeah,
No.
exactly. Nobody.
But but I said this guy is in my eyes the best in the business at between game adjustments.
Right.
They lost that third period lead in game 2, gave the Bruins some hope, but then they won it in overtime off a terrible Bruins turnover. So the series is 1-1 heading into game 3. Trotz is so good at seeing what went wrong, adjusting, tweaking, and presenting a whole different look coming off a loss. That's exactly what the Isles did leading into game 2. And like you said, we are very much knee deep in this series now. But, two teams that play a similar style, that hard, heavy, physical style that they both love. They try to wear you down. And if this series goes any fewer than 6 games, I'd be shocked.
Exactly. Okay. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to ask you your prediction. I know Boston's your team. I get it. As a Ranger fan, I don't even know who the heck to root for. The Islanders? The Bruins?
Pick your poison, right?
Exactly. I'm watching the West games, Colorado
There you
and
go.
Vegas. I need to know a prediction, though, Matt. Matt's picks
There we
here
go.
on the Pulse.
And I'm going to have to do this with my heart. I'm going to say Bruins in 7.
Wow.
I just think they're, at the end of the day, a little bit better. Trotz is great, and he scares me being the opposition. But the Bruins have so much veteran leadership. They're relatively healthy. They're still a little banged up on the blue line. But again, I think it's going 7. I think home ice makes the difference here, and the Bruins advance.
All right, Matt Waymeyer, you're invited back anytime, buddy.
Thank you.
Anytime.
I was starting to wonder.
We were at the pier.
We got this on tape. I am invited back anytime you heard it here.
We'll see what makes that our post-production. Okay. Just kidding. Matt Waymeyer, our sports insider, every other
So
week
often.
or month on a Pulse. Thanks again for coming in, bud.
got it, buddy.
Really appreciate it. Folks, today's show was brought to you by The Dream Project. You can find out more information from our friends at The Dream Project at the link at the bottom of your screen. Join us next week for The Pulse on everything you need to know. I'm Peter Biancamano. Have a great, great week, everybody.
The Pulse with Peter B. is a proud partner of Eyes on NJ.